I've taken a few liberties with today's gospel. While trying to stay true to John's word, I have filled in, imagined, and supposed. I hope you'll join me on this journey to that day long ago. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. The earth is the Lord's and all that is in it. This is the prayer that I was praying when I heard that Jesus wanted to see me. I wasn't especially happy to see him. He was too late, 4 days too late to be exact. He was also the first person I wanted to see. He was my comforter, my friend. I was broken, exhausted, angry, and filled with so much sorrow. My beloved brother Lazarus had fallen ill. We immediately sent a message to Jesus, our dear friend. We had watched him heal so many others. A blind man, a lame man. He once healed a boy in Capernaum just by speaking it from Cana, 16 miles away. We knew that Jesus could heal him, could save him from tragedy, could save us from our grief. With just a few simple words, Lazarus would be returned to wholeness. But for reasons I couldn't understand at the time, he chose not to. Hence why my anger burned towards him. Lazarus and Jesus were friends. They ate together and prayed together and studied together. Why wouldn't Jesus do this for his beloved friend when he would do it for a stranger? My rage forced me up from my prone position of mourning and out the door toward Jesus. I felt betrayed, and I didn't understand why he wouldn't save my brother. Lazarus took care of Martha and I, and we in turn took care of him and each other. But he was our protector. What were we to do now? Where were we to go? We certainly couldn't continue to offer our home to Jesus and the rest of the disciples as a meeting place, as a resting place, as a sanctuary on their trips out to Jerusalem. If he didn't want to save Lazarus for me or for Lazarus, couldn't he be selfish enough to save Lazarus for himself and his own ministry? So I gathered all of my rage and my hurt and my distress, and I prepared to confront him. At the last minute, I remembered myself, and I knelt before him. Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. The last came out on a broken sob. Jesus, as he often did, surprised me. He looked at me, he looked up at the tomb, and he also began to weep. My anger left me, and in its place was just a pit of despair. Others among us in mourning began saying what I couldn't bring myself to utter aloud. Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind keep this man from dying? Part of me felt fueled by the comments. We all believe you could have saved him. Why didn't you? But the tears streaming down Jesus' face made all that go away. It reminded me of the times when Lazarus would say something and Jesus would throw his head back in laughter, or the times that Lazarus challenged Jesus' teaching debating as only those who really love each other can. Jesus, and by extension the disciples, had become part of our family, and I could see just how deeply the loss affected him. I remember the day of my baptism so clearly. All of these people gathered at the bank of the river, listening and praying and waiting, just waiting for their turn. I felt like I was part of something big. I belonged now to this group of people who followed this radical man. This man who taught love over violence, forgiveness over vengeance, inclusivity over rules, who ate with the outcasts and touched the unclean and embraced the sinner. We were a community knit together by a passion to serve and follow this new path. And through our baptism, we dedicated ourselves, our lives, and our resources to the mission of Jesus of Nazareth. So many things ran through my head when Jesus called out, "Lazarus, come out." I had hope that Jesus had the power to give my brother back to me, doubt that it could never possibly happen, anger that it had come to this, and fear, so much fear that Lazarus was just too far gone for it to possibly work. But Jesus showed us that day that we are never too far gone for him to bring us back to life. Those moments, weeks, months, and even years when we are spiritually dead, God calls out to us. Come out. Come back to live. Come back among the living. It wasn't until later that I heard that Jesus planned to stay away so that he would have this opportunity to show those who didn't yet believe that he was the Lord, to bear witness to the fact that he was the Son of God. My brother's miracle allowed a tear in our daily routine that allowed for the divine to enter in. Was my focus on the miracle itself or on the power behind the miracle? There is a difference between Lazarus is back from the dead and Jesus in God brought Lazarus back from the dead. I was purely consumed by my grief, and rightly so, but Jesus saw the bigger picture, that performing this miracle would bring more people to him and ultimately to God. He bore his own grief and pain that others could be transformed. Many Jews left that day believing in Jesus. But now my own question haunts me. The question, why can't my brother just be healed, is now, why was my brother allowed to live when so many others aren't? It was what I wanted, what I begged for. You know just how outraged I was. But why am I the lucky one? Jesus told my sister Martha that he is the resurrection and the life, that those who believe in him will not die. We know enough about the cycle of life to know that everyone and everything dies, but Jesus promises life. Life beyond that which we know, life beyond that which we can comprehend. And I think a new way of living. Jesus teaches us to no longer live for ourselves, but to live for God. We lose people that we love, we say goodbye, and we learn how to keep living. Sometimes we feel them in the traditions that we pass down, or we see them in the eyes of their descendants. We keep them alive by telling stories of their lives, passing down their ways of living and loving. When we share the stories of our faith, of our loved ones' faith, we are keeping them alive while living for God. The prophet Isaiah promised us that one day we will all feast together, a meal for the ages. God will swallow up death and wipe away every tear. I hold on to this truth, as I pray you do as well. Jesus changed me that day. Honestly, he changes me every time I'm with him. But that day, I learned compassion for others going through hard times, faith in a God who sees more than just my own struggle, that God has no issue with my anger and will graciously accept it, and to hold my loved ones while I have them, knowing that tomorrow is not promised. But perhaps most importantly, I learned that I am never too far gone for God. Amen.